a cliche to say, but it's really genuinely true. Like everybody that I meet at this, I mean, this will be the third year coming up now. The first couple of years, I've just been blown away by how nice everybody is. Like both attendees at Langfest, but in Montreal as well. You know, and just like Steve said, enthusiasm. I mean, I meet a lot of people who say things like, you know, I only speak 4 languages. Can I go to an event like this? I mean, I've literally had that before. I only speak 4 languages.
We get that question too.
Yeah, I mean, and people come to this event who don't even speak a foreign language, who are just thinking about it. And these are the people who benefit most because they just get to see the amazing, the infectious enthusiasm, and they realize how motivating it can be to spend a couple of days in this kind of environment. So, you know, if you're kind of on the fence, then I would really encourage you to, you know, take the leap and give it a try. I promise you won't regret it.
I think Nicola and I could also attest to that. Now, we've also, you know, really began this whole movement because we were infected ourselves by Richard and Alex in the Polyglot conference that we went to in New York. So in North America, we wanted to start this thing because, you know, we just can't go across the Atlantic every year. So why not start something here? And definitely the feedback that we've gotten from our audience has been precisely what you've mentioned. It's this inspiration, it's motivation, and hopefully we could get the fever going for as many people as possible.
You know, another thing too, besides the motivation, which is of course the key. I mean, none of us who speak a few languages is unmotivated. You have to be motivated, and I think these conferences can help motivate people, encourage. But the other thing is you pick up so many tips on different things that you can do, things that you can do to improve your language skills, learn a language, even things that you can do with your language skills. You know, I still remember Olly's presentation the first year on how to run a language blog, for example. I mean, it's just a wide range of information, tips, help, encouragement, etc., that you get as you meet all these different people who have all, you know, they got a different experience. Some are school teachers, some, and I'm always impressed with the people who came, you know, from Miami, Florida, or from Hamilton, Ontario, or Calgary, or whatever. So yeah, I very much recommend that people make the effort to travel. And of course, Montreal itself is a delightful city. It's an absolutely delightful city.
Oh, I can definitely relate to that. The inspiration that we get, not just to learn languages. I mean, for myself, I mean, I'm not so much of a language learner anymore. For me, the mission is really about raising my own kids to speak more languages. And
really
also
look forward to the next generation.
Yeah, but also for myself is how to spread my message. And I've learned so much from you guys, you know, whether it's YouTube or other social media, you know, learning from you guys and picking up on all the tips on how to grow your following and how to brand, and that kind of stuff is also something, you know, that's part of, I guess, the language entrepreneurship that you can learn at Langfest through the people that you meet.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the people that you meet is the other aspect, you know, besides the tips and the motivation that you get and all the advice that, you know, you go to these events and you don't realize that, you know, you're going to make friends, you're going to meet people you would have never met perhaps in your day-to-day life or environment. And it's going to lead you, I guess, in some occasions to things that you would have never thought of, just because you made that connection with people who have, you know, I guess, you know, followed some oftentimes a very interesting and, you know, less traveled road. You know, they've learned so many languages, they've had so many experiences. This is something that I always enjoy. You know, talking to people like that, talking to people saying, oh, okay, we were all, you know, having fun at this event, and, you know, we would have never met otherwise.
Yeah. So let's take a minute here. I see that we already have a few comments. We've got people watching live. So thank you guys for chiming in. We've got George, we've got Trisha, and they're saying hi. So, and Trisha talks about motivation, mindfulness. That's her specialty. It's also something that I follow on her channel. So she's happy to see a fellow UK representative here. So that's you. All right. So, Steve, Olly, let's talk a little bit about what have you guys been up to in the language world, whether it's Link or.
Well, first of all, insofar as my personal learning is concerned, my wife and I traveled. Well, of course, last year, August, that was before the conference. I was in Ukraine, so I was in Ukraine and worked on my Ukrainian. Had a lovely time. Very much recommend the city of Lviv in Western Ukraine. Lovely place. But then my wife and I went to Israel and the island of Crete. And so I learned up some Greek before going there. I very much recommend the island of Crete. It's this one particular town, Hania, is an old Venetian port there on the island of Crete. Lovely people, local food, local wine, local olives. It was great. In Israel, I put a little bit of effort into learning the Hebrew alphabet, but it was just too much work, and you don't do it in 2 weeks. But then we went into Jordan and saw Petra, and as a result, I've been studying Arabic for the last 4 months, which is quite a handful. Olly speaks good Arabic. Now I'm going through my mini stories in Link. I've listened to some of them 50 times because we track how often I listen to these things. So I actually feel I've moved along quite quickly in Arabic because I really believe in these mini stories. I'm now at the stage, though, if there were some graded readers in Arabic on history, which is what interests me. I don't like graded readers about, Hasim had a goat or something. Like, I'm not interested in those stories. I would like to find, and I've mentioned this before, when I was learning Chinese, they had graded books on Chinese history and Chinese culture, and I found that very, very interesting. So Olly, who produces graded readers in a variety of languages, why is it, can we get graded readers that deal with serious subjects, like graded readers of nonfiction? And if there were some available in Arabic, I'd buy the whole series with audio, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is, it depends. It changes from language to language, doesn't it? Because if you look at other languages, these kind of things are available. And I think Arabic is just a particular case of a language that is just really underserved, especially the dialects. I've been looking at a lot of Asian language stuff recently, Chinese and Japanese, and people have been recommending me these websites left, right, and center, where they've just got this huge proliferation of all different kinds of content, graded by level, graded by topic. Arabic, since I started Arabic, 4 or 5 years ago, finding good resources has been really, really hard. So I think it seems to be a thing that's particular to Arabic, which is weird because it's such a huge, number of people that speak Arabic is so vast.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Sure.
Is the sort of, I'm learning modern standard Arabic, but say Levantine Arabic or whatever forms of Arabic, is there a written form of that language, or is that simply spoken? No.
It's completely unstandardized. So people do write it down, but it's kind of akin to, when you write down an Arabic dialect, you are guessing how to write it in exactly the same way as if you were trying to write down the, a Romanized version of Cantonese or something. It's just, it's totally unstandardized because typically when you write, you write in a different kind of language. It's the formal language. So it's a problem that's inherent to Arabic, and this whole thing of which should you learn, modern standard Arabic or the dialect? It's a big choice with big implications and lots of confusing messages.
This is an example of a kind of exchange that you can have if you come to Longfest.
Yeah,
you can talk about Portuguese or Chinese or Arabic or whatever you're interested in, and find out about resources and different approches and stuff
exactly.
Like that.
I mean, when
I look forward to picking your brain, Olly, on Arabic. I'll be still working at it by the time I get to Montreal.
You'll probably be far better than me. I mean, I haven't really spoken for the last few years. But no, but you're absolutely right. I mean, when we chat in Montreal, what we're talking about is the stuff that it's kind of what we do, isn't it? Our approaches to learning, what materials we use. Last year I remember you challenged me to learn Italian in a month just by reading stuff, and I'm going to do that this year as well. It's on the cards. But yeah, I mean, for everybody, it's just such a great opportunity to all the doubts and questions that you have in your mind that you go for months or years thinking, am I really doing the right thing? Or does anybody else have the same difficulties as me in learning such and such a language? Like, this is the opportunity to sit down with someone who's just as passionate and driven as you, and hammer these things out, have these conversations, and it's a lot of fun.
And one thing too that people should realize, that no one judges you. I have never ever had the experience. If I listen to someone speak another language, I am always impressed. They can speak, no one judges you. There's no comparison. It's not a performance issue. I'm just impressed that someone can speak 2, 3, 4 languages. So sometimes people feel, gee, I only speak 2 languages and I don't speak them very well. And am I going to be comfortable? You'll be very comfortable. I think that's the message. It's just encouragement. It's like you know what? Your family always supports you no matter what you do. Well, Langfest is like a big family.
I think it really comes down to these are experts in the sense that these are people who've gone through the process of learning languages. Everybody knows what it takes, and these people have a lot to offer. They're not there to judge anybody because they know where you go through.
They've been there.
So from that perspective, it's not just this nobody who's only criticizing just for the sake of criticizing. We don't have anybody like that at Langfest or any of the other language gatherings. I think it's really because we're a community of folks who encourage each other.
It's an interesting word, the word expert, isn't it? Because I was thinking about this just the other day. Language learning is I don't know of another discipline where so-called experts, people who traditionally be experts, having gone through a route of studying the discipline from afar for many years, have relatively little to offer people that actually do it in practice. There's a huge gulf between academic research in language learning and the reality of teaching and learning on the ground. And I think that is why the world of language learning in general can be very, very confusing, because people think, what method should I use? Should I do this or that? What's the best way to learn and all of this stuff. And so the people really who you can turn to for answers are other language learners, people who actually do it day in, day out, with all their different quirks and personalities and preferences. And you can learn all about this, and you can by coming to events like this and meeting other people who live it and who actually they're in the trenches every day.
And if you sort of have a method that works for you, then that experience is just as valuable as anybody else's experience.
That's right.
Learning is your own sort of path, and there's so many books that have been written about language acquisition, so full of complicated theories and research and stuff like that. None of that really matters. You just get into it. I often quote this lady whose name I can't remember, University of San Diego. There was the American Council of Teachers of Foreign Languages, and she said, in language learning, there's only 3 things that matter. And I've used this many times. Your attitude. In other words, do you want to? Do you like the language? Do you believe you can do it? Attitude. The second thing is the time you spend with the language, because you have to put in the time. And the third one, she said, was the ability to notice. But I think the ability to notice develops if you are motivated, if you want to notice, if you like the language, if you spend the time, you will start to notice more and more things in the language. That's all that matters. Nothing else matters.
And perhaps
you like Duolingo, go for it. You like Link, you like Olly's book, whatever, just go for it.
Perhaps one of the take-home message that we got from you actually, but also from Crashen last year, was that there's a condition, I guess it's exposure. I'm finding that to be more and more relevant to me as well. That, you know, if you want to do these things, the time, the motivation, I think one of the key elements that you had to put in is exposure and you know, and understanding, comprehension. I find that to be, I haven't, you know, I have different learning stories from like different languages, but I find that the path that I find the most, you know, agreeable, pleasant, is to be exposed and to slowly begin to understand and to understand more and more. And you know, that's we talked about you know, TV series a little bit, and it did it for me. I mean, I learned English watching a lot of Star Trek, and actually now what I'm doing something a little bit weird, but it's some people advise it. I'm watching Star Trek Enterprise, which is a series I didn't know, with the German dub. And it's actually, it's like, you know, people say, oh, you know, dubbing is not good because you're not hearing the original language. But if you're doing in another language, I find dubs to be actually very helpful because they're very standard. It's very, you know, it's all ironed out. It's very clean, and if you have little time, it allows me to do two things at the same time: be exposed to German while, you know, watching something I like. I know some people will find it weird, but all what I'm trying to say is that, you know, just finding a way. I think it's the message that you have to be exposed in a way that you like, that gives you some sort of pleasure. And I do feel that when I'm listening to that, I have to concentrate. So it's a little bit of work, but it's not like sitting down, especially when I do it, you know, after a day's work, and you know, saying, oh no, I gotta do this.
You know what?
Don't feel that pressure of, oh no, it's not. Oh yeah, let me watch another episode of Star Trek Enterprise, and by the way, it's in German.
So Nicola, I learned that word from Tim Ferriss, an author that I really like. He said, you know, there's stress. When we talk about stress in general terms, it's called distress. Whereas the type of stress that you want to go through to listen to, you know, German, whatever, it's called eustress. EU.
Yeah. Oh, I have a lot of that. Trust me.
And that's a motivating type of stress that you know, you want to do it. It's like going to the gym. You want to do it to become, you know, stronger at what you do.
Yeah.
So yeah, the pleasure, I think the enjoyment part of language learning is something that's critical, whatever the way you do it. And that's the beauty of learning languages, I think, is that there are so many ways to do it, and you're bound to find something that you like. And of course, like Steve says, you know, at Langfest, this is where we've got a high concentration of language learners, high concentration of folks who've tried different things, and you're bound to find inspiration by meeting some of these folks that you know, think like you, or have similar interests. And that can inspire you.
Yeah, well, couldn't agree more.
You know, one of the interesting the things that made me think about is the often I hear from people who have a very different approach to language learning, or think that language learning should be very different depending on whether they are living at home or whether they're living abroad in the country. A lot of the time people assume if you go and live abroad in the country, that somehow that's some kind of a magic pill that you can, you know, you somehow will get all this exposure. My experience living abroad has often been that I have to battle for the opportunity to kind of speak to people and listen a lot, and that just as much when I'm living abroad as when I'm actually here back home. And so one of the interesting things that I've been finding now is that I've been working a lot on Japanese recently, because I just went on a wonderful trip through Japan for a few weeks, and kind of rekindled this passion, kind of long lost passion that I had for Japanese. And over the last month or so, I've been spending just tons of time listening to interesting content, stuff that I really like. I've been reading about second language acquisition in Japanese, which is not easy, but I've been trying to do it with the help of Link. And friends who will record audio for me, which I'm eternally grateful for. But the interesting thing is I've spent more time actually listening to content that I like, exposed to the language, sitting here in London, than I ever did when I was living in Japan. And making much more progress as a result. So a lot of these things are kind of you're never going to find it's difficult to find academic research that kind of references this kind of first-hand experience of how to deal with not only the language but your situation, your environment, the people around you. And I know many people struggle with exactly these kind of counterintuitive questions. So yeah, I really was nodding along with what you were saying there, Nicholas, about getting that exposure to the language.
And I agree very much with what you're saying, Olly. And that is, like recently, where I've gone to countries hoping to use the language, like in the case of Czech in Prague, I arranged for teachers, and I did the same in Ukrainian, because I can't be wandering around the street hoping that I'll run into some random person that wants to sit down and have a cup of coffee with me. That's just not going to happen. So you have to be quite deliberate, and you can do a lot of things that you can control, whether you're at home or in the country, and that is listening and reading and using stuff that's of interest to you. And just as an aside, I don't know how much time we have right now, but I retweeted an article that I saw on Twitter about reading, and this professor was pointing out that reading skills in the United States have not improved. Like, they measure how well people read, and part of it is that they focus so much on teaching kids how to read and teaching them critical thinking and please explain this and explain that, and they give them stuff that's of no interest to the kids, or things that the kids have no knowledge about. Your opportunity to understand something is far greater if you are interested in the subject and know something about it. So Olly can fight his way through something on language acquisition in Japanese, but someone who has no interest in the subject and no knowledge about the subject will find it much, much more difficult. So I think just a couple of things to tie into what you said is, one, focus once you're past the very beginner stage, focus on things that are of interest to you. You're going to do better. And second of all, if you plan to go to the country to immerse yourself, plan for it, because otherwise you might be disappointed.
That's right. It's no magic pill. You don't just go to a country and then suddenly you absorb everything by osmosis. That's just not going to happen. How many immigrant families we know who's been there for 20, 30, 40 years and they still don't speak English or whatever language.
I think what Steve was saying about acquiring that first piece of the language, doing the first step, because if you know zero, you're exposed to the language, you understand zero. If you know some, and you can sort of find pieces that then more and more pieces will add to that and attach themselves to the pieces that you already had. So I think being at a, let's say, lower intermediate level, I think before doing pretty much anything is and that might require a little bit of work, but is necessary, because you need a first piece of the puzzle to put new pieces of the puzzle together. Otherwise, I find that it just remains. Probably you'll just stay stuck at level 0 or how are you for a very long time, and that's not what you want.
We're getting ahead of ourselves. We've got to leave some discussion for Montreal.
Oh yeah. Well, I guess there's an infinite amount, so I'm not too worried about that.
But what you're seeing here is exactly the kind of discussion that goes on in the rooms in Montreal, right? After a talk. Someone's talking about whatever it may be, and then the Q&A, as long as the speaker leaves enough time, is exactly like what we've just been talking here. People, in many cases, and bottling up a year's worth of frustration and questions, and it all kind of comes flooding out in one huge discussion.
Today we only focused on language learning per se. We go wider. We go to language pathologies. In terms of scope, we've got language pathologies. We've got translation, interpretation. We even have folks in acting, for example, who can talk to us about accents, how to pick up the characteristics of certain cultures or languages. So it's a lot of fun stuff that's that's outside the immediate scope of language learning per se. So if you guys have any interest
my talk will be about language geopolitics, which is a topic I find interesting. So that's one aspect that's also it's different. It goes it's not related to language learning, but it's of I think of interest to the language community, and we have a bunch of people like that.
Absolutely.
Different topics.
The politics, the culture, indigenous languages, and also some academic aspects of language learning. We've got professors, and even it's on our website. We have Jessica Kuhn, who is the leading consultant on the movie Arrival. So that's also something to look forward to. So it's wide. We really want to go outside of the immediate realm of language learning or polyglottism per se, and we cover stuff as I mentioned, even language entrepreneurship. We've got some folks to talk about that too.
Well, and Tetsu, your talks about teaching your kids different languages. I mean, that for me was the highlight of all the conferences of the last couple of years. I saw that talk twice, once in Montreal a couple of years ago, and then last year in the conference as well in Reykjavik. And I love that. I just thought it's fantastic.
Thank you.
I saw you people as well. I mean, anyone with kids, this is like amazing knowledge and experience.
Yes, thank you for that. We every year we keep that track. So this year we also have somebody from the U.S. Who's quite well known in the circle of raising multilingual children. Her name is Mariana Dubosc. So she will be with us to talk about how she raises multilingual children.
Wonderful.
Thank you. So I think we're coming to an end for today's lunch with Tetsu and Nicolas.
Yes.
It's a special edition for our special guests. So thank you very much, Steve and Olly, for taking the time with us.
See you all in Montreal.
And we definitely look forward to seeing you guys in Montreal.
What are the dates, Tetsu?
Thank you so much. So,
Tetsu, what are the dates of the conference?
Oh, that's right. It's August 21st to 26th. We have a few days of social activities before the conference portion, which is so the conference portion is the second half, August 24th to 26th. But
so that's we have Friday to a Sunday, so it's the last weekend of August.
But if you guys come to Montreal ahead of time, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we will have different activities for you guys, visiting all around Montreal, and then social activities, hiking, karaoke. It's all in the works right now.
Where can people get tickets?
So langfest.org. That is our website. Please go visit that, and it will be in the comments right below. Langfest.org. Thank you very much.
Good to see you guys. And thanks to everyone who's been watching.
See you next week.
Have a nice evening or day, depending.
Bye-bye.
Bye.